Thank you for coming. My name is Tracy Matthews. I'm the Associate Director at the Center for the Study of Race, Politics, and Culture here at the University of Chicago, and we are celebrating our 20th anniversary this year. We are excited, honored, and grateful to have you join us as we welcome the amazingly talented Issa Rae to the University of Chicago. Thank you for coming again. The theme for our 20th anniversary is assessing the state of race and ethnic studies in the 21st century. And Issa Rae is definitely a trendsetter and path blazer in arts and entertainment, who I'm sure will have lots to say about race and ethnicity in Hollywood and beyond. The flow of the evening will include a conversation, an audience Q&A, and a book signing. So if you don't have your copy of The Misadventures of Awkward Black Girl, they are for sale in the lobby, so make sure you get one so you can get it signed before you leave tonight. I want to encourage everyone to live tweet the event. The hashtag is Issa UChicago, and if you could tag CSRPC, that would be great. A little more housekeeping. I want to thank our co-sponsors. We couldn't have done this event without them. The Center for the Study of Gender and Sexuality, the Office of Multicultural Student Affairs, Arts and Public Life, the Committee on Creative Writing, UChicago Careers in Journalism, Arts, and Media, Black Cinema House, and the Seminary Co-op Bookstores. Thank you. I also want to say that this program would not be happening if it weren't for Dara Epson, who's the program coordinator at the Race Center. It was Dara's vision to invite Issa, and it was her inspired leadership and administrative skills that brought this program to fruition. So thank you, Dara. Tonight, Issa Rae will be in conversation with Jacqueline Stewart, who is a professor in the Department of Cinema and Media Studies here at the University of Chicago. She's the author of Migrating to Movies, Cinema and Black Urban Modernity, and she's currently completing a study of the African-American actor, writer, and director Spencer Williams. Jacqueline is the co-curator of the LA Rebellion Project at UCLA Film and Television Archive. She's the founder of the Southside Home Movie Project, and she's an appointee to the National Film Preservation Board. She's also the curator of Black Cinema House, which is a neighborhood-based film exhibition venue run by the Rebuild Foundation. Now I would like to introduce Nova Smith, who will in turn introduce Issa. Nova is currently a PhD student in Cinema and Media Studies here at the university. Prior to continuing her graduate studies, Nova worked for many years in the entertainment industry, culminating in her role as Vice President of Development, overseeing the Academy Award-winning film Precious. Her dissertation research focuses on the aesthetic possibilities for resistance and subversion in contemporary post-racial America. So I'm going to bring to the stage and join me in welcoming Nova Smith, who will introduce Issa Rae.
Everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. So sometime around 2011 or 12, I started hearing quiet rumbling in media amongst friends, as one often does, about what's next, the new hot thing. And which, of course, if you're a graduate student, means you're already behind the cultural zeitgeist, so what was new to me had already been a big thing elsewhere. But before I knew of our speaker today, or had even seen her show, I'd heard about Jay, White Jay, and their various entanglements. And I'd also seen the logo for the show emblazoned on various items. The logo of a normal black girl next door with a mass of curls and glasses, much like myself. This was my first introduction to the phenomenon of the misadventures of Awkward Black Girl and its creator and star, Issa Rae. Fast forward to today, and the acclaim for our highly successful comedy has taken the web and the world by storm, highlighting the humor and mundaneness of everyday Black life. However, Rae is not only acclaimed for her vision and the world she's created, but also, like numerous Black artists before her, for her entrepreneurship, the ability to get her work made and seen by audiences of her choosing in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. Like pioneering Black artists and hustlers before her, such as filmmaker Oscar Micheaux, publisher John Johnson, music impresario Barry Gordy, and queen of Thursday night Shonda Land, Rae's legacy will be in how she's triumphed in the burgeoning digital era by doing for herself and making the proverbial dollar out of 15 cents. In doing so, she has not only created entertaining content and a business model for success, but also opened up new categories for Black womanhood. Or perhaps more accurately, pointed out the obsolescence of old categorizations. No longer relegated within media to being Mabbies, tragic mulatas, or sapphires of yore, we are now also on record as being average, smart, funny, and of course, awkward. Rather than embodying the mantle of others' definitions of us, we are now depicting ourselves in all of our glorious normalcy. With her own unique flair and infectious sense of humor, Issa Rae's content has garnered over 20 million views and close to 160,000 subscribers on YouTube. In addition to making the Forbes 30 Under 30 list twice, and winning the 2012 Shorty Award, that's my favorite award name, the 2012 Shorty Award for Best Web Show for her hit series The Misadventures of Awkward Black Girl, Issa Rae has worked on web content for Pharrell Williams, Tracy Edmonds, and numerous others. She's developed a TV series with Shonda Land for ABC and is currently developing a half-hour comedy for HBO with Larry Wilmore. And Rae has also released a book of essays with Simon Schuster this year that you can purchase in the vestibule, if you have not already. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming tonight's speaker, Issa Rae.
Geographically. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the complicated way that you've experienced Blackness that then sort of finds its way into your writing about Blackness.
Yeah, so I was born in LA, and that was one experience of Blackness, and that, my father and mother wanted to get out of there as soon as possible for very different reasons. LA was in the 80s. Pretty violent at the time, and she feared for her young son's life. I had two older brothers, and we lived in an area where it was, gang violence was pretty rampant throughout, and so she wanted to leave, and my father thought we were spoiled and didn't have enough discipline. He was like, well, I'm taking you back to Senegal. We moved to West Africa, Senegal, and I lived there for a couple of years, and that's when I was very young. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm African, that's it. So we had no plans of returning back, and that was just going to be my lifestyle moving forward. And I loved being there because I stood out, because I was still American, going to kindergarten in Dakar, and they would ask me all these questions about the States, and I was like the American token, and I felt proud to answer questions about the experience. And it was just like general pop culture stuff, but I was the expert. And so then, my father tried to start a hospital out there, and the government pretty much played him and ended up taking all his money. And so we were broke, and my mother refused to move back to Los Angeles, and my dad was like, well, as a doctor, I feel like I can do better there. Why don't you go to Maryland then, and I will make enough money there for us, and I'll try to send you back. If you want to come back, either I'll go there or you come back here. So ended up moving to Maryland, and that was a wholly new experience for me. I still have the sense that I was, African above all. And again, I went to a school. I ended up going to like a gifted and talented school where there were just nerds everywhere, but diverse nerds, and I just felt like, oh, okay, this is a new identity for me. Like now I fit in that sense. I have friends of every culture, and we just respect each other's cultures and talk about it openly. And I was African American at that point. And so then Maryland had its own set of experiences, and then my mom was ready to move back after spending about 5 years there. My mom was ready to move us back to LA. She was like, okay, let's calm down. Crips and Bloods are like kind of, they don't want my sons anymore, so we're good. And so moved back to LA, and that's when it was the first time I felt like my blackness wasn't necessarily embraced. It was like questioned, and I ended up going to a predominantly black middle school, and it was the first time I was like, why do you talk like that? Why do you dress like that? What's going on, girl?
Like not black enough?
Yeah, the not black enough experience. And that was jarring to me because I was like, but I'm black. Darker than you. But it just made me start to question, well, what is black? And at an embarrassing point in my life, ended up leaving that school and going to a private school where there were predominantly white kids. And so I was like, this is I know, just laughing. Even in Maryland, we're moving schools every 2 years. So I spent 1 year at that middle school and then moved to a private school where there were a bunch of white kids, and I was like, this is my chance to start over. This is now I'm about to be super black. It was probably the worst time of my life because it was just like I had taken from those kids earlier their definitions of what it meant to be black. I had used like pop cultural experiences, which was 90s R&B and fashion, so it was just like Tommy Hilfiger jackets, it was like talking like Missy, it was just, and then like turning in a paper in Ebonics, like it was just terrible. And my mom had to pull me aside to be like, why are you being stupid on purpose? Like, this is not who you are. And I realized that, it wasn't until I got out of the school and I moved again for high school, went to a high school in Compton. And that's when I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna shut the fuck up and just sit back and observe, focus on being smart, trying to get into college. And that was my first experience, like observing and just witnessing different types of blackness and being like, oh, this is great. This is, okay, I can deal with this.
Yeah. It's really interesting to hear you talk about performing blackness, because one of my favorite things that you do on my show is when you rap. At first, before reading the book, I was thinking, okay, so this is just a thing that's like, oh, look at this incongruity of this, nerdy girl doing this like profane, overly violent, but fantastic thing. But actually, you've been interested in hip hop for a really long time, and you had hip hop groups, you had rap groups, like back when you were in high school and stuff, right?
Middle school, yeah.
Talk about you carried it through for a little while, the music thing, the hip hop thing. What was the appeal to you? What has that done for you, like as an artist,
I've always just been fascinated because rap was kind of forbidden. My mom was very much like, PG-13 movies you'll watch when you're 13. Rated R movies 17. So music, if it's parental advisory, then I'm advising you don't listen to it. There was always the temptation to listen to that music, and at first, I'm goody two shoes, so I listened to her. But it was, I felt like golden age 90s music was like when I was in middle school for the most part, and to not be a part of that conversation was another tally mark on my uncoolness. And so I needed to feel a part of it in some way. And when I did, when I was introduced to like Lil' Kim's hardcore album, I was appalled at first. And then I was like, oh, there's kind of something powerful about this, you know, and started my first rap group in the 7th grade. It was called Star 69. Sexy, very sexy. We had two additional members, so 3 members total, and I was really the one that was the most enthusiastic. So really go anywhere. But since then, I feel like in every single space in high school is when we started, when I tried another one, and have just had a fascination just with kind of what you mentioned, just as I grew older, I guess the dichotomy between being this academic black girl, this uncomfortable black girl, and then just also feeling like this hardcore gangster whenever I would recite 7 lines. And then even in college, you know, studying feminism and being proudly feminist, and then, you know, going to parties on Thursday, singing along to like, bitch, like that. That's the complexity of being black. So there's a love affair, and even in doing like Ratchet Theater, I just wanted to find a way to intellectualize, like, for my benefit, and justify my love for this music.
But there's an interesting class dynamic too with that, right?
There really is.
Because I think there's a line in the book that's like, you know, everybody wants to be from together, but they don't really want the hood. They don't really want to be from the hood.
Absolutely.
Right? So, yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing, to be careful, because you don't want to demean, like, this is our culture at the end of the day. It's our culture. And there's a sense in, like, we can make fun of it in a certain way, we can put it on a pedestal in some cases, but like no one else can do it like we can. So there's still a protective nature I have about it at the same time.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Because at other moments you're like, blackness is something that you can inhabit, not inhabit. You know what I mean? Like, it's a complicated identity, and one that you don't always want to own in ways that other people want you to own it.
That's very true too.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to place blackness on. Like, it's my choice, you know, it's my choice to be who I am in the frame of blackness, but I don't need anyone to inform who I am at all.
Yeah. Early on in the book, you talk about your early days on the computer. MySpace, right? Making friends.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about, because this is like an important kind of like generational thing, like your relationship to media has to do with these moments alone on the computer.
Yes. So I started off on AOL. And AOL, unbeknownst to my parents at the time, had these chat rooms. And, you know, since it was hard making friends in real life, you know, this was pretty much when I moved to LA. So making friends in 6th grade was hard, but making friends on the computer was so easy because I could be anybody I wanted. I had time to come up with witty answers because nobody typed that fast that time. And you could sort of build yourself. So I would create these characters online, and really just had a great time doing that. I had love affairs. And didn't really know what I was doing. Didn't know how dangerous it was.
Because how old were you?
11. Having this book out has made me realize that I wasn't alone, thankfully. And I thought I was talking to other kids. Sometimes I knew I wasn't. But for the most part, I thought it was forbidden, but it was my thing. And I think that really led to, it wasn't until years later, of course, that I figured out, oh my gosh, you know, I was creating these characters online at such an early age, and that I ended up doing it professionally. So this was all for a reason.
A good investment in your future.
Yeah, it was an investment in my future, absolutely.
One thing you're really honest about across the book is just a lot of like, and you're getting to this when you're talking about the identities that you could create and characters you could create online. It's like the physical, the body, right? Like how to deal with these questions of skin color, how to deal with questions of hair. With body image too, you talk about, you know, your issues with weight. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about like how it is that you address those questions in the work that you do?
Wow. I mean, I'm very self-deprecating by nature, and so any time that I address my insecurities in myself, I have to. I mean, from jump, it's always been used. Humor has been used as a defense mechanism, but I love to try to make it relatable as well, because we all, like, everyone has body issues. Everyone feels insecure in some way. Everyone feels uncomfortable in some way. So to put those to the surface in some ways, to be like, haha, I know this about myself, so shut up. There's something there about acknowledging it first and then putting it to the table and just being like, I know what's wrong with me, and I'm confident in what's wrong with me. So now let's get to the meat. Let's get to the meat of the story.
Yeah. How do you feel when people say that this makes your stories universal?
I'm not mad at it, because in some ways I love making a work that's universally specific. So it's rooted in a very specific experience, and it's also, it can be relatable. And I've been on a quest to be like, yes, Black people are relatable too. And it's always frustrated me that, it's always assumed that white people are the most relatable, and that anytime you have a broad show that it won't be broad if someone of color is playing, or if two people of color are playing the lead. It's like, we can have Will Smith, but we gotta pair him with, Kate Hudson or something, and that can be frustrating. So it's to show that, yes, we're a specific group of people with sometimes specific experiences, but we all go through the same things at the end of the day.
I was wondering if you could talk about YouTube, right? Like, you're such a pioneer in putting this kind of content, getting it to people in an alternative way. But I think what might get lost in your story is that it wasn't like you just blew up anything, right? There was a lot of experience writing, a lot of like business thinking in the way that you were structuring your shows. So could you just talk a little bit about how you developed it and why you took that route to do it?
Absolutely. I think first, when you're creating content online, whether it's a web series or whether it's a blog or you're forced to be business minded in a way that some people never expect. Like, I wanted to just be creative and put content out there and hope for an opportunity to do it on a larger scale professionally. But you don't know how much you're marketing, you're trying to build an audience, you're trying to cater to an audience, you're constantly communicating, you're trying to raise funds, there are just so many elements that you have to become good at. And initially, I did my first web series, I created my first web series in college, just again for fun, really.
It was
Dorm Diaries, And at the time I'd been directing and producing plays for 3 years, and had taken time off of school to pursue screenwriting with a writing partner. And she had an idea to go to New York Film Academy. Stanford didn't have a film program at all. They didn't start until my senior year, and by then it was just too late. And so we stopped out of school briefly to learn as many skills as possible. And then the plan was to try to shop this script around. That was a Sundance semifinalist. So we were like, we have this great idea, and we've gotten great feedback, so let's try to shop it around LA and Hollywood. And our feedback was like everything short of, this is too Black, or, can you, make it a little lighter, or this isn't really appealing to Black audiences. And it just didn't make any sense. It was so stupid. And so I ended up coming back and continuing to direct plays, and Facebook had pretty much just come with this posted items feature. That's what it was called at the time, before it was, you could share videos and things like that. And I was in the bathroom and I had an idea to be like, oh, you know what? I've been working with my friends in these plays, and I was like, they're so funny, and it would be so great to make a mockumentary about what it's like to be Black at Stanford. And I was like, I'm about to cast my friends and just like, basically as versions of themselves, with archetypes, and just be like, hey y'all are acting. And I know that they shared it because, and share something that they're in. And they did, and so it started spreading around schools, and spreading around our school, and then around other schools like Harvard, Georgetown, and Duke. And people were like, oh my gosh, this is my college experience, this is exactly what I'm going through. And that was the light bulb moment in that, okay, now I have direct access to an audience. Just something I've written, on the fly is being distributed to an audience that appreciates the work as is. This is amazing. And that always stood out to me. So with every web series that I do after that, I think there were two-year increments between the web series before I got to Awkward Black Girl. I started learning what was working with each, what wasn't. For example, Dorm Diaries, it was extremely low budget. It was my first foray. And while it stood up, I guess at the time, it doesn't stand the test of time now by any means. But something that was wrong with it was that it was 10 minutes long, and people would look at it, new people would be like, 10 minutes? Like, I'm supposed to waste my life? So I was like, okay, that's a light bulb moment. And so my second web series, Fly Guys Who Sent the F Word, I was like, okay, this is gonna be a new model. I'm in this for real. I'm gonna release it every Monday at 10 a.m. Each episode is gonna be the same length, about 7 minutes. And we're gonna try to build our audience from there. And then even then, I learned that while people appreciated the consistency in our audience grew, 7 minutes was still like, people were, 7 minutes too long to really just engage. And while we had an audience there, I was like, okay, by the time I do Awkward Black Girl, I learned from the mistakes of these 2 web series. Not only do I need to be consistent, but I need to draw people in. I need to have an episode that's 3 minutes tops. And I still ended up going over a little bit, but I applied so many of the lessons that I had learned from the previous web series to this one, and just put my full weight behind it. And I didn't realize that I was strategizing that entire time.
Yes, absolutely.
After that, it just became one long strategy to stay around.
Mm-hmm. Was there a moment when you thought you couldn't do it anymore?
There were so many moments where I was like, but people really people motivated me, and motivated us. It eventually grew to a team, and I was finally doing something I wanted, and the biggest frustration just came from not having anything, not having any money, not having the means to continue, or not having the time. But every single time, timing-wise, everything came on time. I had a friend who ran out of money the first time, maybe the 3rd or 4th episode, because Lord knows I had just planned 1 episode initially. One of my friends from Stanford chipped in and helped us for a couple of episodes. And then, he left, and we were like, oh, we'll be down. And around episode 6, I just was completely tapped out. I had quit my job because on the fortunate side, I got representation, and I didn't know what that meant. But I thought I was on. I was like, my job, I'm out. And it didn't mean that I had money coming. Far away. And so I was in the negative, and my producing partner at the time was, tapped out too. And so that's when someone suggested we use Kickstarter to help try to fundraise, and I heard it a couple times. People were asking to donate. They were emailing. Generous people were like, hey, your sound is terrible. Can I please so you can fix it? I didn't feel comfortable taking their money because you just never know with those kind of things. And so Kickstarter allowed us to be like, hey, we need money and this is what we're using it for, and you get something back. And initially we were like, okay, this is our first, asking for money is always tricky, and especially in our community. I don't know why there's a stigma about asking people, Black people, for money when we're extremely generous, when we have the highest buying power. But in our minds, we were like, people are watching it, but Black people are watching it, so let's just ask for $5,000 to try to do 7 episodes. And then our Asian cinematographer was like, what? Are y'all crazy? At that time we had 60,000 views per episode. And he was like, if half of the viewers gave $1, you'd have 30,000. Make that your goal. And we did it. People helped us to double it, and we made nearly 60 in 30 days, and that really that motivated me. I was like, wow, people are paying to see this. Like, they want to see this continue. It clearly has some sort of effect, and I can't stop it. So then it just kept on building.
Yeah. So then talk about how you then thought about your next projects after that. Were you always thinking, I want to parlay this into something that ends up on HBO or on network television? Did you want to expand the possibilities online first?
It's like, I did want to expand the possibilities online. I think other people got it into my mind that you should take this to television. Like, that's the next step. And I realized, like, with my other two series, that's what I tried. I tried to shop Dorm Diaries and take that to television, heard the feedback. There, again, like, Black people are into college shows and just stupid things. And then even with the F word, I thought that they were more commercial in a sense, and tried to take that to television. And again, was told, like, they have to pick one lane. Like, in television, it's either you're comedians or you're musicians. You can't do both. So I was like, by the time I came up with Awkward Black Girl, I was like, you know what, this is not for them. I'm just gonna put it on the internet. If they can't get the other two out, they're never gonna believe that awkward Black people exist anywhere. So my goal was just to have that online and try to sell t-shirts. And that was like the minor goal, or the short-term goal rather. And then, like, as it started to grow and sort of blow up, people recommended putting on TV. And even when I got representation, they were like, okay, we're gonna package this and we're gonna take it to places. And one of my first meetings was extremely terrible in that, you know, the executive told us, he was just saying that, like, in order for people to want to watch this, you know, Black people love to see celebrities. Yeah, non-Black guy was like, Black people love seeing celebrities, and that just has more viability for success. And you should cast a Lauren London or a Brandy as awkward Black girl. You know, just populated. You can see what Kelly Rowland's doing. It was just, and not those women in any way, shape, or form, but they're just not my vision of awkward Black girl. Like, that would have defeated the purpose in the first place. And so that reaffirmed the fact that I was like, oh, I'm doing the right thing by keeping it online. But again, there was still pressure to try to package this and take it to television. And I kept on going on these other meetings later. And then it just took everything in me to be like, to write all my representation in a long letter and be like, look, I don't want to take it to television at all. I would love to, like, let it grow for 2 seasons online and then see what happens, maybe do a film, but this is our mid-first season. And I was like, I just want to keep it online and you know, keep it as pure as possible. And I don't know why that was so hard. I literally wrote back, okay, yeah, no problem. But there was just I don't know, I always had this fear of, like, losing opportunity. But then I had to learn that, you know, opportunity is really only opportunity if you're ready for it. That's right. And I just wasn't ready for it then. It wasn't the right opportunity for me. And eventually the right opportunity came along. That's when, you know, Pharrell saw the series and decided, like, he really wanted to be a part of it in terms of putting it on his channel. And, you know, Google had just funded several channels, and we were able to be fully funded because of him for our second season.
Nice. So, can you talk a bit about what happened? You did decide that it's now the time to go to TV.
Yeah.
We all read about Shonda Land.
Yes.
Her memoir comes out tomorrow.
Yeah, I got a copy.
They can battle it out. Let's get it out.
Wait, what? The books? These books can battle it out? Set me up for failure? I decided that I wanted to try television when we released the second season of Awkward Black Girl. It got reviewed by, like, Rolling Stone and New York Times, and that caught the attention of Shonda Land. And I had met with them previously when I was going out on all these meetings. I met with her producing partner Betsy Beers and someone else named Rachel Eggerby, who's no longer there, but they called me in just to see what I was doing with this series. And I was like, same thing. I don't really want it to be on network television. If it does go to television, I would love for it to be on cable. And they were like, oh, we completely get it. Okay, bye. And then after that, the second season, they called me back in. This time, Shonda was in the meeting. And I was like, yes. And they asked the same question. They were like, so what's going on with this show? And I was like, yeah, it's still there. I just want to keep it online, or if I would go to cable. And they were like, yeah, it's very raw, so that makes sense. What else you got? And that's when I was like, oh, well, I've been thinking about this show called I Hate LA Dudes. It's based on facts. And they were like, oh my gosh, we do too. And we just started talking about it for 2 hours, and at the end of the meeting, they were like, we want to develop this with you. And that's when I was like, okay, I want to do this. I, of course, want to work with women and a team that I admire so much. And that was, again, another moment where I was like, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. I can't let this slip out of my fingers. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure it goes the right way. And in that, they were the dream team to work with. I'd never worked in television in an official professional capacity before, and they were just super accommodating to my voice and very patient in terms of teaching me the ropes. And so that relationship was wonderful. Where it kind of fell apart for me in terms of vocalizing myself was, and being vocal about my creative opinions was when it went to the network and the studio. So for those of you who don't know, ABC as an umbrella has ABC Studios and ABC Network, and they're completely separate entities, and they don't necessarily have the same taste or the same interests. And so as a writer, you can get swallowed up in that because you have to juggle notes from both the studios and the networks, and if they conflict, then you have to still try to make them work. And if you're not solid in your vision, which I wasn't necessarily, you can get lost. So in doing that, I just, every single note they gave, I was like, okay, I'm gonna make it work, to the point where, by the time I turned it in at the end, it was just not me.
You didn't recognize it?
I didn't recognize it. It wasn't the same humor. And that's also pretty much how I feel about network television in general. Unless you're a solid writer with a track record, you can get lost in that system. They can just make your body of work very formulaic. Because at the end of the day, you're trying to fit into their brain. Even with that show, ABC is very much family oriented in that, they have family shows, of course, and then they have shows like Happy Endings, or had shows like Happy Endings, and they're a family of friends. So a lot of the notes would be try to make them a family of friends. And I was like, but hate is in the title, I hate but still try to make it work. But that was a huge learning lesson in terms of being okay, the next time, ABC didn't end up picking up the show. Also by the time I turned it in, because of so many conflicting notes, they had already ended up picking up 2 or 3 shows about dating in their 20s. And, it was on me at the end of the day. So I was like, dang, I lost that opportunity, that door closed, but I vowed, if I ever got the chance again, I would never let that happen to me.
Were you going to be on the show? Were you going to be the...
No, that was just there was no plans, but they were leave it open, because you might want to be, but it was just a passion project.
Because I was curious about whether or not the dating dimension of it, and dating is a huge theme that comes across your work. The things that were complicating the idea of the show around race and sex, right?
Yeah, those would definitely be factors, but we didn't even get there.
But now you're with HBO.
Yeah, so when that door closed, after I was all sad, I ruined my opportunity, and they were just so sweet about it. Then HBO called a month later, hey, we heard you're free. Do you have anything that you wanna pitch? Or we'd love to hear it. And so that's when I pitched the idea of a nonprofit, as it was at the time, / Insecure. And they bought it in the room, and I was developed. That was in 2013. And that was a learning experience too, because they were just there. They accepted the project in a very pure form, and then the next step was to pair me with, they usually pair me with writers who haven't had experience with showrunners. And so they were like, you need a showrunner, let us know if you have any ideas. And my management paired me with Larry Wilmore. They were like, hey, you should meet him just to see if you have a connection, and no pressure at all. And so I met him, and we just clicked on the spot. He was just so great, he was just so down to earth and so smart. And initially he was just supposed to be like a supervisor, because they were like, he's really busy, so don't expect much more. And by the end he was like, I'd really love to write this with you. Wow. I mean, would you mind? Would I mind? I was so excited. And so that led to, he taught me so much about standing your ground and being concrete in your vision. Like, that partnership was such a blessing, because he really took me from the down to my level, in a sense where he really got to know me and really got to know like what made me tick, and open himself up. And that whole process of getting to know each other ended up being kind of the foundation, unbeknownst to me, of the pilot. And it was a very authentic writing style that I hadn't experienced before. And we ended up writing the pilot in like 8 to 10 days, the first draft anyway. And it was just so fast and seamless. And in notes, he taught me how to take notes in a way where, it's not being, you don't have to take every note. It's just like figuring out what the note behind the note is, what the overall message is, and extracting that in a way that makes your story stronger. And working with him definitely changed my entire process.
And it sounds like the context of HBO, just in general, was a different, more amenable to the kind of work you want to do.
Yeah, for one, just even on a technical end, they don't have a network in the studio. It's just one team, and where there are like 4 to 8 people giving you notes on the network side. This was 2 people just being like, hey, we're HBO. We're HBO company. It's just 2 of us. Do what you want. And that was extremely refreshing too. And there were notes. And the biggest complaint is that they have a reputation for taking a long ass time, like 2 to 3 year average on their projects. And that's not something I was accustomed to at all. And that I was very impatient. So I was just like, I just want to get this out here. But they have the time. Like, they have so much time to develop their show. I never understand that.
So in your impatience, would you want to maintain, have you maintained the stuff you're doing online, right? Like, do you imagine yourself occupying both, as difficult time-wise as that would be, to operate, kind of in both registers?
I do. I fully plan to. I still appreciate the web as the most pure, raw, authentic voice, and I love collaborating with content creators and giving a platform to other dope people to like create, and that I'm a fan of. So that'll always exist. I'll try to create as much as I can in addition to balancing, but that's my home.
Right,
That's my roots.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah,
Because I'm sure the idea that you would sell out somehow, right, has been a huge amount of pressure on you. Or that somehow if you do something on mainstream television, even just choosing that medium is somehow getting away from the roots of what you've enjoyed.
Yeah, I've heard that. There's definitely been like people have been like, oh, you good now? Okay. It's like, that just comes with it. People are gonna expect you to change, but if they only knew how much no's have happened, how many times I've been like no, how many boundaries I've set for myself, how many like I know myself, other people don't know. So it's just like as long as I feel confident that I'm remaining true to myself, that doesn't really concern me. And I have always maintained that, like from jump. Amar, is he here? Anyway, hey, you here? He was talking about how he saw an interview before where I was saying that, if I ended up on HBO, more or less, that would be a dream home for me. Like if I did go to television, that would be the network that I choose, and it ended up happening. so no settling out has happened, just lots of talking.
These folks have questions for you. Woohoo. So there's microphones set up, one there and one over there. So if you have a question for Issa Rae, you should just line up with the microphone. And please ask a question. Not make a speech, because I'm sure a lot of people would like to be able to ask a speech. I'll cut you off. So let's start over here.
Hi, I love you anyway. So, Awkward Black Girl showcased a cast that displayed a lot of diversity within blackness, so you're casting various shades, body types, etc. However, in media, we see a lot of colorism in casting, even in content aimed at black audiences. Do you have any say in who is casting your shows? And considering how hard it is to pitch a show with a majority black and brown cast in the first place, is it possible to insist on the same diversity you have in Awkward Black Girl within blackness in like your new HBO show?
Yeah, 100%. I would not have done it if that weren't the case. And I can 100% say that all of that has been considered and all of it has come to fruition. Like who I wanted, I got, and the show is, I mean the pilot at least, because we haven't shot the show yet, but the pilot is everything I wanted and more. Down to the director and showrunner, down to the cast, to just the writers that we ended up hiring. Like I'm very excited and have had a say, and more than a say throughout. Thank you.
Question over here?
You mentioned that while you were at Stanford, Stanford didn't get the film portion or film school until your senior year.
Yes.
So you took time to learn and study up on production on your own. And I was just wondering what resources you had so that people who are on the creative writing side know how to transition into the production side. Like,
Sure. So I mean, in addition to like books and stuff that I would pick up, the New York Film Academy I thought was the best short-term model because my parents weren't gonna let me drop out of school. So luckily Stanford, I don't know if Chicago has this, but you can't stop out temporarily and then come back. Okay. Well, yes, Stanford, you won't lose your credit. You can just stop for however long I don't know if it's however long. I'm gonna say it's like a year, 2 years. Somebody, whatever. Yeah, so that you can stop out and do your thing and come back and everything remains intact so long as you come back within a reasonable time. So New York Film Academy was great because I could get the skills that I felt I needed and get like a crash course in film because I'm very much a hands-on, like I want to do it myself. I want to learn all the skills myself, and I don't need to be great at it, but I just need to know what to look for. I need to be as knowledgeable as possible. And so I had help, I want to say, from my parents to help me. It was not expensive at all. It was not like, at the time, it was not it wasn't costing my tuition. And then I also got really lucky because I feel like it was half my money, half my parents' money. And something happened, a glitch where the check bounced and they never followed up. It was like a scholarship. So that was my thing. There's so many things now, like where with YouTube, with there are tons of tutorials, there's so many books out there, and it just depends on the kind of person that you are, whether or not you want to go for it and be hands-on, or you can have formal training. But there are tons of resources. Like now, film equipment isn't as inaccessible. People are making movies on their phones, as you know. So there are just so many routes to break in.
what was the most important thing you took away from the New York Film Academy?
Honestly, skills in every, like editing, in cinematography, in lighting, and like to not know anything about that, and then to come out and being like, oh, I can do this. That was a great skill to have. That I applied that to all my web series. They weren't great, but they still helped me to put something out there as opposed to like waiting because I hate relying on other people in addition to like asking for help. And so when you're depending on someone, things tend not to get done unless that person is as about it as you are. That does not happen all the time. So yeah, being self-sufficient was the most valuable thing I learned.
Hi, Issa. First of all, thank you for doing what you do and for giving us a show where I can find myself in, in the characters that you create. But you talk about your identity and how you have a multi-layered identity, and specifically that your parents or your father was from Senegal and how you were raised there. So I wanted to know if you ever explored the idea of maybe creating a show exploring your identity as an African and also being African American, kind of like blurring the lines. I'm from Rwanda, so growing up in the United States, I've had parts where I identify with my African identity, but I also am Black in America. So kind of like creating a show where you cross the boundaries and being African isn't the other Black, but also a part of Blackness.
Yeah, I thought about doing that, but there's some things where I'm like, my experience isn't strong enough where I feel like I do it well. And so in that sense, I'd rather support someone who's done it and who's had the ideas doing it and is doing it well. And there's a young lady who I actually ended up casting in my show, Yvonne Orji, who has a show called First Gen. And she's, it's about just being, Nigerian American with immigrant parents. You should check out the concept training. It's really great. So that I'll promote up, and I can relate to that. It's really well done. But yeah, not for me though.
All right, thank you.
You were mad about that?
No, I didn't know. So you put me on. I'll look her up.
Okay, maybe it's for sure. I mean, it's fine.
Hi, Issa. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your wisdom. I know I am a part of such a large crowd that really appreciates your work, so thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm wondering, for new content creators who have a day job, how can you balance that day job and really also work towards pursuing your passion?
There comes a time where you just reach that kind of like apex where you're like, you can't do both. I did that for a long time, and one suffered, and it was always my day job. The work there suffered. And honestly, like, I feel for people. Like, sometimes you want to separate the two. You want to focus on your day job, and then after 8 hours, you try to come home and work, and you're just exhausted. Like, it's very, very hard to do, and that's why so many people have to choose between their passion and their work, and making money or pursuing what it is you want to do for the rest of your life. And yeah, I made that decision. Thank goodness the decision was kind of made for me just by my ignorance. But you have to decide.
Hi. First, I want to say thank you because I started watching you when I was in Liberia, working in Liberia, and started watching Awkward Black Girl, and was working with Yvonne Orji at the time. So thank you for just being a part of this whole transition from Liberia to here. My question is, I've been following you on Twitter and on Facebook, and I've noticed that every once in a while you will say something about what's going on politically, whether it's Black Lives Matter, and I'm just wondering if you feel that you need to separate your political beliefs from your creative work, or is there ever a time when you feel like, a tension to separate that so that you can keep the humor in what you're doing?
Oh, no, I don't feel the need to separate anything because I was saying earlier that I talk about what I'm affected by. Like, what I'm affected by, you'll see in my work. I think that in terms of making a blanket statement about what's happening, sometimes I don't feel articulate enough, and I would rather, again, in the same way where I feel like, where the young lady asked about what ended up being the First Gen show, I can't do that strongly enough, but I can support people who are, and then in my own work, I work through comedy and find myself putting those issues in my work from time to time. I never feel forced to, and I only do it when I feel like I can make a difference or provoke discussion in some way, shape, or form. But no, there's no separation. There's no like, I'm just keeping it funny, only 24/7. There's no separation of the brands in any way, shape, or form.
Wow. Does that ever get exhausting to you because you play yourself, like in these multiple ways?
They get it.
It's all exhausting.
It's exhausting for everyone, I think. It's just like, but it's happening and something needs to be done, For me to be like, I'm tired of talking about it, and people are like, well, I'm tired of dying. I'm tired of my kids dying. Like, it's a small inconvenience at the end of the day. And it's just the frustration comes from feeling like, I'm not doing enough. What can I do? Because in some ways, there's not a tangible solution. There's not a tangible thing to aspire to. And I think that things like Project Zero, that are aiming for policy are helpful, and that you actually feel like there's something that you can help to change. But yeah, a lot of the frustration is just in what can I do?
Peace.
Hey.
Kind of two questions. So, what are your feelings about the views the executives have about Black people? How did you voice those feelings? And do you feel responsible with your art for the way that Black people are viewed?
How do I feel about how executives view Black people? I don't know, but I know that I have, in my experience, it's been made very clear to me that we're just not on their radar, and they don't see us. It's very bizarre, Some are prejudiced. I'm not going to argue that, but all of them are not. They're just literally not checking for us, and so that's why it's always a surprise when Think Like a Man is #1 at the box office. Did anybody at this studio see it in the staff meeting? No, I didn't. What is that? I don't know. But it's always, that's when I'm like, oh my God, Black people go to the movies? Oh my gosh, Latinos and Blacks love Fast and Furious. That's who's going to the movies? It's insane. So I think that because there are not very many executives of color, or there are token executives who feel like their voices aren't necessarily heard or considered, we're just not being seen. And that's, again, even in this surge of diverse television, that's why people, again, are surprised, and now they're scrambling to figure out how to make more, how to mass produce more shows that appeal to us, but they're not going to appeal to us because they're not created by us, and so that's a huge issue in the first place that I feel like it is changing, and I'm optimistic that things are going to progress as we move forward, especially within the next 2 to 3 years. But yeah, just when you have a system that's been, where you have a system where the people in charge have been there for 20, 30 years, and who end up being heads of these conglomerates that own the networks, not much will change because they're stuck in their old ways. So I've been saying, I'm just waiting for people to die.
Thanks a lot.
I would just like to start off saying thank you for being here. We have a lot of, I used to just watch your show on YouTube, I never knew your background. We have a lot of similarities, I'm Nigerian American, my dad's Nigerian, my mom's American, so thank you, because I never knew anyone could validate my experience. So my question is, since you said that when you were younger, you went to a predominantly white private school, and then you went to a black public school. I did that last year. I went to a white school, and now I go to a black one or whatever.
You alright?
So, so I just wanted to ask, how do you navigate high school as a black woman and a black feminist as well?
Ooh. I want to hear the answer to this. Oddly enough, I said earlier that I kind of came into myself sitting back and observing. Like I didn't try to be anyone that I wasn't. I had done that in the past. I just wanted to I wanted to get into college, and I wanted to get into a good college, and I just wanted to be good. And I found that I wanted to be good and smart, and I found that focusing on my studies and also focusing on the extracurricular activities that made me happy and passionate really helped to inform who I was. So I was doing drama, I was taking drama classes, I was on the newspaper, I was getting straight A's, and I was doing academic decathlon, and that was, I didn't feel pressure to be cool. I just made friends that accepted me for me, and ultimately I found that really propelled me to a new respect. I was like, all I have to do is just, be myself and be smart, and people flocked to me, and mostly they were like, hey, what are the answers to the homework? At the time, because they were still asking for help, and I was happy to give it to them, and that, there was nothing more valuable than that to me. And I hate to tell you this because my experience really just came from sitting back and not trying too hard, but embracing who I was and being myself is ultimately what led me to the path that I am now. So I can only tell you to do the same. Stay who you are.
Every story in the book where you're under some pressure to prove you can dance, prove you can dress. You're always like, oh my God, I can't believe I tried to do this.
Yeah.
And the lesson is to just,
I should have just told people I could not dance. I should have shut my mouth at that particular time.
Thanks up.
Okay.
How did Melina Masukas get picked as a director?
So I've been a fan of hers for a while, and one of my best friends, she was getting her master's in psychology, and then simultaneously she was like the stand-in for Rihanna videos. And I always thought that was really cool, and she would always come with stories about this is before I identified as a black girl. This was like in 2008, 2009, 2010. And she would always be like, oh man, I just had the best experience on set. And this director, Melina, she's so cool. She always makes me feel so welcome. So like I'm just part of the team. And that always stood out to me. I was like, wow, this dope female director. Like I hadn't heard of her before. My friend Daisy told me about her. But that was always in the back of my mind, like, oh, okay, stand-ins are usually have the worst stories about how they're like treated like shit on set, and here's this director that's like really catering to my friends. And so by the time that Insecure came around, I did have a list of directors that I wanted to consider, but when I mentioned her name the first time, they were really they wanted to look for people that were more experienced, and they're open to experimentation, but they were afraid to take a chance, and that was on all fronts. That was mostly coming from like management side, and wanted to see if other people were interested. But luckily with persistence, after meeting with a bunch of directors and some being like cool or lukewarm, there was no one I was passionate about, and I finally got them to say yes, and we just bring her in just to see. I know she's a risk, but I just want to meet with her at the end of the day. And she came in and she just came with a take that was just so dope and also very much in line with what I was thinking, and I really felt like she would elevate it. And she was very passionate, and that was something that you don't necessarily get, believe it or not, from experienced directors who are doing pilots, because they're like, this is what I do. I'm gonna collect this check, and you're not really gonna be, you as a writer aren't really gonna be considered. And I just didn't get that sense from her, and so she impressed the president, she impressed the president of HBO, she impressed my showrunner and I, and ultimately got the job by just offering her take, and blew it out of the water. First time director, and got the show picked up, so she's good in my book.
Hi, I would just want to say thank you, and I'm so glad you're here. Awkward Black Girl was a really influential web series for me. And I think that like seeing you as like the creator and writer and star really, really inspired me to like go on my own path as a filmmaker. So thank you for that. I was just wondering which texts, either books or films or music, kind of inspired what you're doing now, or like were really influential to you as a creator.
90s television, all of it. I am a huge fan of Larry David and Tina Fey, 30 Rock, Seinfeld, and I always wanted, and The Office, of course, the British and the American version, and just really like, we're like, why are there Black people in this? Like, we laugh at this stuff too. We like go through the same situations. Like, I want to create a character who has those sensibilities, and that's where the Dorm Diaries is definitely influenced by The Office. The F Word was as well, in addition to like influenced by Christopher Guest documentaries. I think that he's the best. And then Aqua Black Girl for sure was Tina Fey influence. So yeah, those all played a huge part in informing my sensibilities.
How are you able to find mentors inspiring people to take an interest in your work and then fund it? Because like in undergrad, I heard whoever took like a heavy interest in your work and he like funded it, and that's a pattern that I would continue even after the first step. So how do you get people to fund it, illicit it, and support it?
So Harry Elam was, one of my favorite professors and the best theater mentor I could have ever had, and was extremely influential. But I will say, in addition to him being in my corner, universities have tons of money, and I keep saying y'all need to hit them for these dollars because they're not using them. And he put me onto that fact, and so did another student who was, the first play that I was ever in at Stanford was created by this, it was like a musical, a hip opera, and it was created by this student who was older than me who showed me like the ropes in terms of asking for money from these different departments to make it happen. And she was like the first legit producer I had ever experienced. And so I really followed in her footsteps and did the same thing with this help. I feel like in the real world, it was a slap in the face because I was like, oh, there's no like school listserv with all Black people out there I can just get up or to advertise myself or to try to get money. So it was just a different ball game, and you literally just have to prove that your work is worth funding. And then even then, it's still hard at the end of the day. So there are programs in place where you can get there are programs and festivals in place where you can get your work seen, and then there are private investors that want to have a stake in your success if they take an interest in your show. But now, especially for short form content, there are so many companies that are popping up that are like just giving money away to great web series and great writers to populate the content on their channel. And people are, trying to tout themselves as the HBO of short form. And there's so many companies, like you'd be surprised. So do the research and you can find people that are looking for the content that you want to produce. If you're producing online content or like serial content. I don't know if you're into theater or something else.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good luck.
Hi. Hello. Okay, sorry, I'm being super weird right now. Sorry. My name is Michelle. I really like your show because I felt like it was almost like a pioneer in sense for like alternative Black comedy, because I feel like we always sort of see the same sort of stereotypes when it comes to how Black people are portrayed in comedy, specifically Black women. I'm a comic writer. I want to be a comedian, or I'm doing it, I guess, in places here and there. And I was just wondering about your technique, your comedic style of writing. Sometimes I tend to run into certain roadblocks when it comes to sort of creating dialogue. So do you have like something that you do? Do you like meditate or something? Or like, I don't know, like play some music to just chill out? Or I mean, how do you really find your voice through?
Yeah, I would say like 3 things. I talk to myself a lot.
Yeah, me too.
Great, so you're on the right track. And especially when dialogue is concerned, like sometimes you just have to test things out. Like I will have full-on conversations with myself, not in a crazy sense, just as characters.
Right.
And if it makes me laugh, if it makes me chuckle, then that's the first draft of workshopping in my mind. Like, okay, I made myself laugh. And then secondly, I find that I find ideas when I'm like not connected to anything. And like I said, the bathroom is like the best place ever. There's a drought in California, so I've had to like limit my showers. But sometimes even if you don't have to go to the bathroom, just sit there. And like there's so many ideas.
Sit on the floor and just kind of.
Or at the toilet.
Right, you would normally sit, right? Sorry, I'm being smart.
I love observing people. I love going out and I don't love going out in person, but I find that like that's a lot of the material is there. Put yourself in situations where you're uncomfortable, and that inspires so much of my material because you start to ask why you're uncomfortable, you start to find the humor in it, and that's my source of comedy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Yes. Hey, I had a question. So I'm a middle school teacher, and so after I finished reading your book, like I ran to my classroom. I was like, oh, I'm gonna share this in my homeroom. And then like the first line with like being like an internet hoe, I was like, no, I can't share that with my 12-year-old. So like I like put the book back in my backpack. So I guess like no, and then so I guess like my question is like, do you have like plans to do kind of like work surrounding middle school teenage girls? Because it's like awkward for me to talk about like love and hip hop with my girls, and so I would love to talk about like you and like your experience. So is that something that you have planned for?
Yeah, definitely. It's something that I want to do. On a similar note, I was sitting at a restaurant one day, and was sitting outside. And this mother comes up to me with her 6-year-old daughter, and she's like, oh my God. And she's like, to her 6-year-old daughter, do it, do it. And the girl starts singing, my booty shot. So that really motivated me to be like, oh, this is not, unfortunately, my content currently is not for kids. And I think about that, like what would young people watch on television now, and what would young people read right now. So I definitely want to make content that young kids can watch, and young girls specifically, for sure. So that's on my to-do list. I just need to clean this mouth up.
And you talk about in the book how you're going to protect your kids from this kind of, some of this content, but they already are consuming, they're already consuming, so that they call you're too young for that. But we all did too, I'm wondering about this idea of protecting the kids.
I still remain sheltered for like a long time, and I don't know. I mean, it clearly backfired on my mother, but like she tried at the very least, and I like to think that I still had a semblance of childhood and innocence and naivete, and I want to give that to my kids as well. I'm going to shelter them as long as possible until they're
Till they get on the computer.
Hi, Issa. Thanks for being here. I listened to Misadventures of Awkward Black Girl when I was driving to Chicago when I moved here, and it was the best. It kept me rolling the whole time. Not like literally rolling, but So in the book, you talk a lot about the performativity of blackness, and you also talk about your identity, identifying like as African versus African American. And I was wondering, as you are now, do you find yourself still performing different kinds of blackness depending on where you are, or has your identity changed at all, or do you just kind of have this overall blanket identity for yourself that you allow yourself to work under, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that's a good question. I find myself performing blackness in certain situations, for sure. I mean, I wouldn't call it performing, I'd say adjusting. And, you know, we all code switch from time to time. I won't say we all, because that's a blanket statement, but that's definitely something I do with friends. And that's something I also want to explore in the show. There's sometimes when I still feel uncomfortable because it's really, really stupid. Uncomfortable because I feel a sense of being out of touch with my blackness. If I'm in certain areas or having a conversation with certain people and I feel like I still need to show that I'm down in a sense. And it's the stupidest, most uncomfortable thing. And I think about my, 7th grade self all the time. Like, you have to do this. The voices in my mind. But that's just, again, something that I want to explore more. Without going into specifics, but I was on a plane actually, and it was a very, very interesting experience because I was in the aisle seat and I was sitting next to this black couple. They were kind of elderly, but not really, and they looked like they were like professors. They were just very together, and sat down next to them, smiled at them, and then went about my business. And then this lady gets on the plane with her son, and she is like, Marcus, sit your ass down, get in that chair, get in that chair, like just going crazy. Everybody on the plane is just like, and she's like, like going off on her son, just being like super rough. So she's like, sit your ass down, get in there, you're holding up the line and shit. And so kind of uncomfortable, like, okay, it's not that serious, mama, but nobody's gonna tell her how to raise her kid. So then there's this point in the middle of the plane where, in the middle of the flight, where we hear her say, you got what? You, come on! And she takes him to the bathroom, and while she's taking him to the bathroom, she was like, you don't shit on a plane, Marcus! You don't shit on a plane! Entire flight. And so I have this moment where I'm like, this poor boy is going to be like scarred, taking a dump on planes for the rest of his life. Everyone's listening. I'm like embarrassed for him, and I'm embarrassed like kind of for her in a sense, like you don't have to do all that. But then I'm like, well, why am I embarrassed for her? This is clearly her parenting style. And why do I feel like people are looking at me like, get your auntie? Tell your aunt and your cousin Marcus. But then I look at this black couple next to me and they are living. And so then I have a moment where I'm like, why are y'all being so judgmental? Like, the problem, this doesn't concern me. And so there was like an identity trifecta thing happening there. I find things like that so interesting. But had it been just me and Marcus's mother, I would have felt she had made eye contact with me during that time, and I had seen like other white people and stuff judging her on the plane. I would have felt an obligatory like, that's what you do, you girl. Thank you.
Thank you for that anecdote. I am super curious, it's like not really relevant to like your work necessarily, but I wonder what you think about representations of Black people on national networks, national TV networks. Like Blackish, particularly, it's a family show.
Yeah.
I'm talking about that.
I mean, I think Blackish is great. It's a unique Black familial experience that I think is also extremely universal, and I think it did a great job of. It's doing a great job of just being a great family show. I think that's something that kids will watch. Kids that were my age will watch and be like, oh, remember Blackish? Blackish was great. As far as other shows, I mean, I'm all for Black people getting jobs. I'm all all for people of color getting jobs. And that's just it at the end of the day. I'm happy for that. Again, my concern will always be, but who's writing them? Because it always shows when, especially in comedies, have you noticed that like, sometimes when white people write black characters, they always have to make them acknowledge that they're black. Well, I'm black, so we don't, we don't do that. You know? Always the same thing, like they're just getting it out of the way. And the same goes for sometimes in dramas and things like that. I just want to be able to tell, like I also want people of color to get jobs behind the scenes and to be able to tell our own stories. And that's just something I feel strongly about. So on screen, if Morris Chestnut is getting a job in a show that I don't necessarily enjoy, it's fine. Like, that's great. Good for him.
Good for us.
Good for us. Exactly. It's just going to bring more. So, yeah, those are my thoughts.
3 more questions. You heard?
I was just wondering, because most of our parents are not into the internet and stuff that we're into, with social networks. How do your parents feel about what you've done up until this point? Like, do they understand web series and Kickstarter? Do they look at you like, what are you doing every day? Or do they think you've made it also like the rest of us?
My mom is very supportive. She's, she always wanted to be a director, and so she's like living vicariously. And she doesn't always understand everything, and I don't always tell her stuff. Like, I don't know, I don't know what to tell them, and so she'll get angry when she like hears about something through her like girlfriends. Like, oh, you didn't tell me Essence? You didn't tell me that you had blah, blah, blah. I didn't know that you cared, Mom. I'm sorry. And my dad does not know. He just knows that I'm not asking him for money, and he's proud in his own way, but I don't think he fully understands.
He hasn't watched this.
I don't think he's seen it, and I don't think that he would even get it, if I'm being honest. He has his own sense of humor. I don't know, maybe he would. I really don't know, but it's not like, I don't want to show him an episode where I'm singing, niggas want to fuck me from behind. So he sees it on his own.
So I'm not sure if you've seen the Shower trailer, but it's been a lot of mixed reviews, to say the least. And one of those is the issues that people may have is that kind of taking a comedic approach. So I'm curious what your thoughts about the film, if you got anything.
Yeah. Y'all are serious about this shower?
I know.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen it. I was extremely excited about it because I really love Bamboozled. I love School Days, and Spike Lee's approach to satire has always been one that I appreciate. So the trailer I responded to in a way that I was like, oh, I want to see this. I want to check this out. I understand the sensitivity, especially of like Chicago natives and people who feel like this is an epidemic that's happening right now, and that this is not something to be laughed at, and they may have gotten something from the trailer that makes it seem like he is poking fun of the situation. But if you've seen his movies, you know that he always has some sort of message. He always has something to talk about at the end of the day, and I'm just happy that the discussions are being had. And I'm not the type to say that I'm not going to dismiss a movie based on a trailer at all. I would love for people to like see the film and then decide, but I'm excited about it. Thank you.
Silence.
Mixed reviews.
Yeah, this is our last question.
How you doing?
Hey.
Okay, so I was wondering if you could give me in three of the biggest obstacles you face throughout your journey right now, and also 3 things you won't compromise concerning your work.
3 of the biggest obstacles I face: money, procrastination,
all myself. So when you hear students say that as a professor, I hate procrastination and self-doubt. It's always me. It's always going to be, except for the money part, but like those, the obstacles, I'm a strong believer that, you are the one that stands in your own way. And I've stood in my own way many a time, and it's just about getting out of my head, getting out of my own way, and moving forward. And then things that I would never compromise, my integrity. I feel like these are going to be basic answers. My height, my values as a filmmaker, I think that, and my principles in terms of what I've been preaching and what I believe in front of and behind the camera, and my love, my passion. If I'm not passionate about it, I will not do this. I will not force it. I won't. Yeah. So I'm very much still passionate about what I'm doing. I'm blessed. I'm grateful, and I feel like I'm in a position where, or getting to a position where I can help others do the same, and that's what it's all about for me. That's what a trailblazer does, right? Like, you don't just do it for yourself. You're trying to create a path for other people.
Hello.
That's something we really have to thank you for, and thank you for your time today.